All right, everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Mind of George Show. I'm humbled, but I'm also extremely honored to have today's guest. And who knew that my pink would be a walking pattern interrupt, since this man lives in a house with 5 other women and manages to be an absolute savage of an entrepreneur and a business owner and a mind that I incredibly respect. And I don't even know if I contextually said that grammatically correct, but like I incredibly respect. And I'm just going to own that all the way because I've had the absolute pleasure of being on this gentleman's podcast. And when I mean about entrepreneurship, from like a life in the tech and gas field to helping startups get their funding, to Amazon businesses, to case studies of bootstrapping a company to 16 million, to having consulting, and quite frankly, being a breadth of experience and knowledge at a very deep level, with the most beautiful, sobering truth pill of integrous delivery, of also a man of values who speaks his mind, which I love about our conversations. And we were just joking. He's like, is this being recorded yet? I'm like, no, we need to just remember all of this and do it again. And one of those guests where I'm just excited to listen to, and also shares such a similar interest and values of the world and business, who calls it like it is and sees like it is. So I'm incredibly honored and excited to welcome Neil. So Neil Twa, welcome to the show, my friend.
Thanks for having me. That's quite an intro. I hope to live up to it for the next couple hours as we jam. So if you're in it for an hour, you better be in it for 2, folks. I'm just telling you right now. No, I'm kidding.
Oh, no, I love it. I love it. I even remember the first time we connected, and like, you were in your truck. I was like, I like
Yep.
you. Oh my God, we see the world the same. Like, I'm in, like, whatever we need,
I was
whatever we
in
can
the
do.
truck on the dirt road. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the story of my life, right?
In the truck on the dirt road. There's
In
a
the truck
country
on the dirt
song in
road.
there somewhere.
In the truck on a dirt road. Sounds like a Blake Shelton song. Blake, you're listening to this.
I'm like, I actually think I have a Blake Shelton song on my podcast, on my playlist, called Dirt, or In the Dirt.
Yep.
Or
Yep. We
yeah.
listen to that. We listen to all that. It's one of our, country songs where we live, or one of our favorite stations.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
just play through
I
Amazon
love it.
Prime.
I love it. And so, so for everybody listening, right before the show, I was like, all right, Neil, I just want to kind of hit him right in the feels and give him some value. He's like, well, I got a couple things, like how we can bootstrap, this. And I was like, oh, and then
Yeah.
he's like, or we could talk about like what giving value really looks like, and what no liking and trusting somebody really looks like and means, and not how it's misperpetuated in a whole lot of senses that cause a lot of people pain. And so
Yeah.
I kind of want to toss it to you, because I've actually never even unpacked on this show KLT, or no like trust, and in that lens of value. And you have a beautiful perspective that I fully and wholeheartedly agree with. So I kind of want to just throw you the ball.
All right, well, thank you. I'll just try to explain it in my simple layman's country terms as much as I can, and maybe borrow some aneurysms or something. We have ducks and chickens and cats and animals. So if I start randomly going off into the field mumbling to myself, it's just know that happens quite a bit out here. The know, like, and trust relationships. If you're in a product based business, if you're a consultant, if you're in the coaching space, this is just something that's important to really understand. And I don't think enough people do it with enough conservative value that they think they're going to sell someone, when in actuality they need to be influencing the sale, right? Marketing is a direct aspect of sales. Marketing is just the activity of sales. And I think many people kind of miss that. They just want to go straight to the sale. And we were watching, it's a funny story, we were watching Tommy Boy the other day with my kids, which is totally wildly inappropriate, but we were fasting through some of the things that weren't great, because the rest of it's totally funny. And we get to the part, because my kids are being raised and homeschooled to become entrepreneurs, and we've got them out of the system, and we raise them every day in ways that they can become naturalized entrepreneurs to figure out where they want to go. And it's 4 girls, so I'm not pushing them in the world like I would boys. And that's kind of one of the things that's different, I think, about my life than others. I'm not pushing my girls into the world. We're building Proverbs 31 women in our house, which is a whole different route, whole different training, whole different outcome expectation for their lives. Not to become just power, go hungry women. That's fine. More power to you. If you're listening to this and you're a woman and hasn't shut me off already, I'm raising ladies in my house. So let's just hang on for a few more minutes before you cancel me on this call. But the end result is, I'm raising them in a certain way, in a certain growth. And part of that is the no. So I've taken my wife, and specifically Katie, and the time that she takes and the attention that she gives to these children every day, and dedicates and pours her life into them every day, and trains them and tutors them and helps them and mentors them, and talks about the things of being a woman, or what it's like to be in the business, or what it's like to do these things. She's in, the details of their life, like every day, more than I can, because I have a different battlefront to run. But knowing who they are and knowing what they need is truly understanding what they want and helping them go get it. And I think many times, if we're not willing to take that time, even with our children, we're not taking that time with our clients. Well, we think, well, I'm giving my children to a system that will allow them to do that so they can be focused while I'm over here talking to my clients. And I don't see them as separate, because in my world, they're all the same. And that may not make a whole lot of sense to everybody from your perspective and from my perspective, but coming back to that, Tommy, it makes a whole lot of sense when you see it in kind of a funny, stupid manner. And the funny, stupid manner was there's a guy who just doesn't know his flow. He's trying to sell things that he doesn't know a whole lot about, really at the, the detailed oriented level, but he understands the need of the person and the business itself and why they come together. And so he's found a simple connection in doing it. He just doesn't know how until he just discovers it in the major failure of that process. And if you haven't watched Tommy Boy, I recommend it. It's a great sales movie. It's a documentary for how to sell. And in the end, he sells the lady on opening the chicken fryer and putting the wings in, even though he doesn't realize he sold her, because he was just being himself. And he's laughing and joking about how he kills his sale. And I see so many consultants and people out here crying over killing their sales. And I do not care about a sale lost. And I think that's one of the biggest differences in the know, like, and trust relationship that you should really take to heart. If someone doesn't match, stop trying to sell them, move to another person. You don't actually have a maybe mechanism and a tactical problem like you think with all the growth hack stuff you're trying to get around. What you actually have is an offer problem. You have an intentional offer problem. And if you cannot explain it like in 6th grade language to a kid and have them go, okay, I understand, at their basic fundamental, your offer is too complicated. So start there. I know everybody wants to start with, well, is it ClickFunnels? Is it Go High Level? Is it this? Is it that? I use Kartra and basic lead pages and text messages to do millions of dollars in sales in the consulting world. And that's it. It's not complicated. I close them on a Google Doc. Oh my gosh, right? This is, there's no high powered pitching funneled, sales. And this is going to be contrary, I think, to the minds of a lot of management and consultants and coaches. They're like, well, what are your numbers? What's your CPA? If it cost me $5,000 to acquire a client, then it's because it took the time to acquire the right client, the right person for the right time with the right expectations. And that time frame, that know, like, and trust relationship may have taken 3 months, 6 months, or 12 months to develop into a client that may be a 3 to 5 year client where there's millions of dollars in business opportunities for them and for us to go out, build, acquire, and scale businesses and exit them. So if you look at it in more patient terms and your daily, weekly, monthly activities, you should be really trying to know what your clients are, what they're doing, and what their solutions are, and then just simplify the offer down. If it's a no, then if it's a KNOW, not an NO, and you didn't get a HEL, Hubble, hockey stick, double hockey stick, no, or a hell no, leave me alone, stop bothering me, then your offer is wrong. It's just that simple. Your offer does not match your audience. And I see so many people flushing all this time, energy, and attention down the drain of, I need this email and this sequence, and I send this many messages, and my funnel has to convert like this, and my traffic must hit this CPL, and I don't care about all that. Ta-da! Like, if you know what to focus on, it's the focus of the relationship for the person you're getting involved in. If you can put their benefits first, they will like that. They will like it. They'll want to know more about it. They will come for you and figure out how to get it out of attraction. Okay. And then I'm not there to ever sell them. I'm not here to sell anybody on anything today. I'm here to actually disqualify all the people who are not serious. So you and I are not alike, right? Well, Neil, do you have $1 million a month coaching business? No. Do I want $1 million a month coaching business? No. And you probably think you do, but it's most likely for the wrong reasons. And now I'm going to sound really judgmental. So hold me back, George. I'm going to sound really judgmental, right? Right? Because what is it gain a man to spend all of that time focused on worldly things when you have no purpose behind it? If you are profit above purpose, you will fail. Ask me how I know. Been bankrupt, took a business, drove it into the ground, ended up with 3 little kids, a pregnant wife, and $269 in the bank account. Okay. 12 years ago, I was dead broke. Okay. And the point of that was that I put profit over purpose. And when I was forced to stop because there was nowhere to go but up, and I was the guy pushing for the $1 million a month accounts, pushing for the profit, pushing for the growth, pushing for everything else, I left a lot of very important things behind. Okay. And in that process, I was given a moment of clarity. I was given a moment of change. I was given a moment of time that I could have walked through and continued back to where I was, or I could have saw it for what it was at face value, accepted it, humbled myself in that process, and went a different direction. Okay. With the glory of God and his purpose and drive, not mine, he woke me up to that situation and put me into the right path. I was willing to listen to the path. I was humbled by the path. And I was like, well, I don't know where else to go now. And basically it came to be sit down, shut up, and hang on. Right? This is the way you should go. If you're willing to walk that way, I'm going to go with you. You take the steps, I will go with you. And if you're willing to do that, here we go. And so I did. And so I gave it all to him and I said, okay, where are we going? And he said, guess what? We're going into physical private label products. I'm like, we're doing what? We're going into physical private label products. I said, okay, I don't really know a whole lot about that. I know about direct response marketing. I know about mobile marketing. I know about building offers. I know those things. I don't know anything about the physical private label product world. I don't know about shipping and transport and manufacturing and logistics. I have no knowledge. And in that process of trying to figure that out on my own, mutual connection put my partner in touch with me. And it was through that connection. We had a 1-hour phone call 12 years ago. And we have still been in business and done tens of millions of dollars in business together since then. He is the other half of my brain. He was the answer to that equation that God sent me, a person who said, I can fill that gap in your knowledge. If you're willing to humble yourself and you're willing to listen and you're willing to set down all this other stuff that you are so arrogant and prideful about, here is someone who can help you. Now, I wonder, for those listening on this call, how many times you've been presented with that opportunity, but you simply didn't see it. You weren't willing to accept it. The offer was given and you said, nope, I got this. And the rowboat went right on past you. Okay. And maybe you're still sinking and drowning and another rowboat's come by and you're still not listening. No, I got this. Thanks. And by the time the third rowboat goes by, you're dead in the water. Right? How many times have people struggled? Have you ever struggled with that, George?
1000%.
Yeah. See, what happens is we get that id going. We get that ego going, get that pride going. We see these social media things. We see these clips and glimpses of people's lives for 15 seconds. And suddenly we have this total perceived value of who they are and what they know and what they can provide. And if you are that person, just understand that is very fleeting. If you're not willing to know who that person is, why they're willing to buy that from you, and who they're going to sell it to, get gain from it, or get access to it out of the value of their purpose, not just yours, you're going to lose. It's just a matter of time. And no amount of system and marketing and generation can fix that problem. It will eventually collapse on itself. It'll collapse under the weight of your arrogance. It'll collapse under the weight of your pride. It'll collapse under the weight of the financial strains and struggles and problems that will come out of that, from the kind of people you use down to the fact that they'll jack up your merchant accounts if you get a bunch of wrong people trying to buy your offers, to the fact that you'll try to fix all of those problems, okay, not proactively, but retroactively on a daily, weekly, monthly fire basis. And many of you in the coaching and consulting world are on fire. I know it. I've seen it. Maybe you're not willing to admit it, but I've watched it happen many, many years. Why am I not in that position? Not because I'm like some blessed person and better than you. I have my own blessings that I've been given in the time that I've been alive and the challenges that I faced. I just did something a lot of people are not willing to do. I looked at the rock, I turned it over, and I looked at all the squiggly, nasty things on it, and I took a real hard, practical look at it. I was willing to look at the nasty side of the rock. You may not. You may see that rock, you may look at it, you may have tripped over it 10 times already, but you won't pick it up. And you won't look at the bad, ugly side of it. And you're not willing to do anything to change it. You just want to keep strong head pushing yourself forward. You will take that into your conversations with your clients. You will take that into your conversations with your leads. You will take that into the language and copy and the goal of getting to know somebody in the process of a sales experience. And you will dump that on them. Even if you don't think you have it on your presence, it is written all over your body language. It is written on your copy. It is written into your offer. And you will try to convince yourself that it doesn't exist. And then you'll try to convince the client it doesn't exist. And when they don't give you the yes immediately, you will do everything out of desperation to try to close them. Not out of confidence in walking away and saying it's not a good fit. Not out of confidence saying it's great, that may not have been a good fit for me now. Or not out of confidence in saying, hey, guess what? It wasn't a good fit for them at all in the first place. And all I was going to do was take them on for the money. That's a pure profit-driven problem. Then they become a bad client, and you turn that client over. And I see a lot of coaches and consultants and agencies burning through 60% of their client book every year, never keeping anybody on for longer than 3 to 6 months. Okay. My people are for 3 to 6 years minimum, right? Because we do long-term business growth with a smaller amount of people, okay? And a higher profile business that's elevated above just the masses and what I call the mosh pit, where everybody's down there jamming around in the sweaty biker mosh pit, slamming into each other with a 6'4" biker that, knocks you on your butt. Like, this is the sweaty mosh pit of this business model, right? And I have elevated above the courses, coaches, and all that nonsense. And I've stayed at the management consulting level, executive above business building at the management C-suite level. And with that, I moved out of that swamp, that mosh pit. Okay. And I'm up, in the box seats enjoying the roof. Is it because of what I do for people and what I take from them? No, it's actually because of what I'm willing to let them do for themselves. Mm-hmm. And then giving them an incubating in a profile where they're able to actually execute that. And in our world, that's e-commerce and physical private label product brands. Have I now done this for 12 years in this marketplace, heads down every day in my own operations, showing exactly what we've done, what systems we built, what processes we operate, the software that we use in my company. It's not sold publicly. It's only for my clients and for my business model, and only giving people access to that who really want to truly build a business to have a life-changing opportunity occur in 3 to 5 years. That could be the growth of the business, could be the exit of the business, could be just fulfilling a life goal of owning your own business. And realizing that, you can do these things when you do them with the right people. Structure your offer, okay? And we joked about this a minute ago, not just because here's some free stuff and just blurt up, like, here's 59 free things I'm giving you, okay, that you might find some value in all that. But look, it's just this big package of free, okay? You might as well be Uncle Eddie showing up in his RV with a handful of crap and be like, here's all my free junk. Like, what value is there in that? Well, this does this, and this is about their copy, and this is about their sales letter, and this is how they do their ad. Now, you have just lost them to the free-seeking world, okay? And I know this is something that's been pumped out here recently in the last few years as a big value proposition, but at the end of the day, if I'm giving something free to someone, it is a specific, targeted, intentional benefit for them to get that one thing that they're going to use that they can actually execute on to change something about what they're doing. Either launch and build a catalyst of them actually getting into the business, or if they're in the business, doing something right today, tomorrow, and next week that positively impacts their business. And if that free thing that leads to a small offer doesn't generate that result for them, I've already lost them. I lost their trust. They won't like me for it, right? So we get to the trust phase. The trust phase is earned in whatever time it is earned. Right? So that could be 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 30 days, 90 days, or 2 years. It really just depends upon who it is. One thing I will not accept when people, come to talk to me about business is that they're putting me in the subjective position of convincing them to do the business, or even convincing them to do the business with me. And I will always turn that around and say something very simple like this. This is not the right call for you. I am not here to convince you. I'm going to go ahead and shut this call down. I'm going to ask you to go do your due diligence, check out the additional resources, come back to me later on when you understand the value and proposition of what we're doing. This is not the right call for both of us. This is going to be a waste of time, and I don't want to waste your valuable time. And so we're going to go ahead and shut this call down and move on, right? Those are not fun calls to have. I've had people yell at me and scream about wasting their time and stuff. And I'm like, well, you booked a call. We came here, we did this. But at the end of the day, it's not a good use of your time to be on this call having that conversation, because you don't realize the value of the relationship we have at this point, and that is not a valuable relationship for either of us. So I'm not going to waste your time. And sometimes they come back, and sometimes they don't come back, and that's okay, right? Because I don't need to sell every person I meet. And if you're a coach or a consultant who's trying to do that, I would encourage you today to stop doing that. That is a desperate move, and you will smell like desperation. You will not smell like you know what you're doing. They will not like you beyond the small time they've had with you, and they will certainly hate you after they thought they trusted you, and then you don't show up big enough. Okay, here's my $500, changed my life, or whatever it is. That isn't going to happen. You know it. I know it. You're selling it out of opportunity. Don't do that, okay? Stop thinking about that mass and start thinking about purpose over profit. I have been on a soapbox way too long for the answer to that call, George. Sorry about that.
So I just feel like I just sat through a sermon, and I'm here for all of it. And I'm going to re-listen to that one again. And it's so funny. Like, I have so many threads in my vein right now, but also so many timely reminders of things that I talk about that even I've fallen victim to, walking the same path that you have.
That's what we all do it. We're all guilty of it. We all need held in accountability. The Bible says iron sharpens iron for a reason. If we are going to sharpen each other, we have to listen to each other, which means we have to humble ourselves sometimes. And I have been humbled by my mentors before who slapped me upside the head and said, no, stupid. Sales fixes everything, but do it with ethics and integrity. Okay. It isn't sales that fixes everything. It's sales fixes everything. You have to understand the difference in what I just said. Okay. You need a business. You need to generate cash for that business. You need to keep that cash flow in your business for as long as possible and not cash flow someone else's business. You need to take that money and leverage it as a tool. Many of you are still thinking about cash flow as an asset driven for the accumulation. I'm thinking about it as a tool that drives a mechanism that delivers an asset. Right? We're still not the same page yet. Hopefully you're getting there. Right? So the same way I taught my 16-year-old daughter how to, build the framework of a book, she actually went in and executed since she was 14, the writing of a book that she published right before her 16th birthday. She wrote an entire novel and published it as number 8 in the teen and Western fiction and all Amazon bestsellers right now. She did that. All I did was say to a few friends, my daughter has a new book on the marketplace. Please go check it out. And if you want to encourage someone at a young entrepreneurial stage, go out, grab her book, maybe leave her a copy. And it has now gone out on its own. But I've shown my 16-year-old what's possible in a know, like, and trust relationship, building up a new authorship, etc. We took her, just her and I, to Nashville, Tennessee a couple of weeks ago for an event I was hosted at as a guest, as a part of a sister company we work with called the Wealth Without Wall Street and their Apex coaching group. And this is about building passive income, almost automated income, which leads to my book, and the ability to create systems that allow assets to be driven from your efforts. Okay. And from your efforts, of course, in business and integrity, your clients are also rewarding and that and becoming brand ambassadors and things along the way. And we had 8 people there at that conference from Voltage, myself, my partner, 4 of our clients that were successful doing businesses between $500,000 to $16 million a year that were there and represented, brought the brand forward. And my 16-year-old who's never been to that event before, never been to Nashville, got to come along for the ride. It was just her and I going to that event. If you're not taking time with your children to do those things, I highly encourage you to. Okay. If you're going to be purposeful, take them to some place where they can benefit. In this instance, 30 to 40 other kids from families that are doing and thinking the same way as us about business and income and building wealth without Wall Street through mechanisms like e-commerce and real estate and other things, then you need to spend the time to do that with your kids. The benefit was there was 30, 40 other kids there. They also went into a young entrepreneurial beginning investors classes where they learned how to do some of the basics of business investing and thought processes and what they were going to do and how they were going to take some of their energy and time to build up a mechanism that would allow them to not have to go to college if they didn't want to, right? So my daughter now at 16 and has gone there and listened to some of the things I said. And then we had a 7-hour conversation on the way back in the car where she, decompressed all the things she'd learned from the weekend and the different times she did things when I wasn't around her. And lo and behold, George, guess what? Some of the things I heard from my 16-year-old while we were there. Similar things that I told her along the way, and she owned it. She heard it from others. She heard it echoed. She heard, other people saying the same thing. And then she was coming back saying, Dad, you know what? By the time I'm like 20, I could be making 6 figures a year doing this, and I don't have to go to college. I said, yeah, baby girl, you don't have to. Like, there's no need for that. You can make a business that'll make you more than you'll pay for education every year. She says, I can even publish other people's books. She says, if you'll finish helping me learn the marketing of this, I will know how to put a book and market a book, and then I can help other people market their book. I can build a publishing company. And I was like, yes, you can. Absolutely. From 40 acres in the country on Starlink, you can build a 6-figure a year publishing company. And she gets it now, right? She's driven. She's back. She never needed us to push her to do the book. In fact, we had to pull her back because as we homeschool and they do activities and they do their normal, work chores and things they have to do for animals around the farm, which is part of their normal everyday life. Once they're done with those, they do their books, they do their studies, they do their time with mom. They do their specific curriculum. We're not an unschooled homeschool community. Our kids don't run feral like some of the way off leftists, homeschoolers. They actually have a structure we follow. But if they're done by 1 or 2 o'clock in the afternoon because they have finished the work, the study, mom has double checked, they're on task, they are getting their arithmetic and all their other things done they need to be smart, then they're free for the rest of the day to do whatever they want. Just like you could as an entrepreneur. Imagine that. And feeling the life-work balance of doing the work that needs to be done and putting in the effort, but then also rewarding yourself with fun and enjoying the things you want to do. And her time was spent writing a book. And she did not need anybody to tell her what to do. In fact, we had to tell her to stop, get off the computer for a while and go play because she was so heads down on getting this done. And it's now out there. there's so much purpose driven in this life from that one activity. If I can just get my other three girls to follow some level of that effort on any other activity that they become skilled at, honed in on, or whatever they love to do, where they can see that process by the time they're 16. And I got a 14-year-old and a 12-year-old going on 13 and an 11-year-old. So I got four girls in 4.5 years. We were just pounding through. We didn't sleep for a decade. Then if I can get those other three to anywhere remotely close like that, my purpose for my life and my wife has been fulfilled. You understand what I'm saying? And it's done before I'm dead, right? It's done before I'm dead. And when I show them what my life used to look like, they can't hardly believe it. They don't get it. I have to tell them stories of my past because they don't understand where I came from. I lived in big cities. I flew all over the country for 200 days a year. I lived in New York and Manhattan off of Wall Street and ran across the Brooklyn Bridge. In fact, I love the area so much, I almost stayed there and moved there. This life wouldn't be my life if I'd done that. And I loved it so much when we came up with the daughter's name for their first girl, it came up with Brooklyn. And since my wife's middle name is with Lynn, we became Brooklyn with two N's, and she now goes by Brooke, but that's how I came up with her name. Loved that area, but it was never where I was fully going to live long term. But again, building that purpose and building it into your kids, building it into your life, building it into a normal daily, weekly thing. This is a 17-year process for me. Anybody's listening to this thinking that just happened in like the last 5-10 years. No, it's 17 years in the making. And I think everybody wants this stuff done in the next 17 months or 17 minutes. No, you're not thinking big enough. You're not thinking legacy, purpose. My purpose and legacy will be driven out from the way my children exemplify all the effort, sweat, blood, and tears and challenges we had financially getting to this point that they will truly benefit from. And it has nothing to do with how much money is in their bank account. You understand what I'm saying?
I do.
And I think so many people still see legacy as a dollar sign. Profits over purpose. Yeah.
Okay. So I literally am tickled with love and gratitude for even this message because I just turned 40 and and I knew this the first time that we connected, like so many shared values and views of the world to where I had the same thing of hey, do you know this, George? Do you know this struggle? Yeah. Like high consulting, scaling companies, #1 apps, all these things. And it took me moving to Montana, selling every single worldly possession, driving a Subaru Outback Wilderness and getting made fun of all the time, but being
That's a nice car, by the way.
I love my car.
It's such a great all-wheel drive. Yeah, the thing's awesome.
I'm replacing it with the same exact car. And
who cares what you drive? But I mean, if you love it, who cares? Wear your pink hair and drive your Subaru and own it, brother.
Yeah. And there's a lot of guns in the car, which everyone laughs at. I'm like, areas of transition. I have tools for different animals here. And
tools for different animals. Don't even get me started on what we have out here, dude. We got, bobcats and bears.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. And I never thought I'd own a skid steer or enjoy driving it every single day.
Super fun.
Genuinely putting it out there. But it's so interesting now because I quote unquote, and I even heard this in what you were saying, I achieved everything that I thought legacy was. All of it. And I was more empty and hollow and I still didn't get it. And it almost had to be removed from me, and not because anybody removed it, but because I was so out of alignment. I ended up removing it myself and breaking it because it was for the wrong reasons. And now I feel like I'm at 40 writing chapter 1 of that legacy from a place of values. And I was going to ask you about this because genuinely, I'm even emotional listening to what you share because it resonates at such a deep level and is so current for me in navigating and uncoupling and choosing values and love and my family and my son and my daughter. But values is something I thought I understood, but it was more so 3 words on a wall. It was more so this is what I say I stand for. And in hearing you speak, the amount of embodiment in what you do and what you stand for and what you serve, I kind of want to hear from you, where values comes in and how you practice and embody those values. Cause it's written in the DNA of how you speak.
Yeah.
But it's something for me of wish, I almost wish somebody was hey bro, it's one thing to say integrity or stand for relationships, but it's another one to be it. And I feel you embodied that, and even passing it down to your daughters and knowing what you do in business, it's those embodied values that you even pass down to your clients that make them successful. And I would love for you to unpack values.
My values may be different than yours to some degree. We have a lot of similarities, and maybe different to some of the people who are, still listening to this and didn't just disconnect already. Well, thank you for listening. Appreciate that. Um, is that I had a randomness in my values by the time I became a 19-year-old man. While I grew up in a Christian home and knew my family and went to church and did all these things, I didn't accept what they gave me. I didn't accept the way it was done. I didn't accept the thought process. It wasn't mine to own. It was theirs to put upon me. That's how I saw it. Okay. Now, when I went out and then tackled the world and into my 20s, I basically destroyed my 20s, my life, and my first marriage. So I was married previous to the woman I'm married to now. And I learned a very hard lesson about life. And I've heard a lot of very hard lessons about life. And it actually didn't start getting easier until I stopped looking for the worldly acceptance of things in my life, my wife, and my family and friends, and the things that other people thought about me. And I came down to approval of one person in this world, one person. And it was, what did Jesus think about me? What would he think about me when I'm standing in his presence one day and I have to say, did I do a good job? I want to hear that I did a good job. And when all of that finally changed from me and all of that went out, and I personally accepted that moral clause and standard that was set by him, not by the world, I said, I want to do everything to hold that standard, right? Everything to hold it, embody it, become it, live it, walk it, not be afraid to speak it, not be afraid to teach it when I know I can and cannot do those things. Although, I don't want to be held accountable as the teacher, for some of these things, because that's not my bent. I'm an evangelist, right? That is who I evangelize, what I am, where I am, my family, and my business. And that's what I'm good at. I am not other things, right? There's plenty of other people to do other good things. The end result is, in that time and purpose, God has shown me that's my gift. That's my bent. That's where I'm supposed to be. That's who I'm supposed to be. And when I finally understood that and rested in that, the rest of it sort of fell in place, because it's like, well, now I can't be that other person that I was in my 20s and early 30s anymore. I have to change. I have to be willing to change. I have to ask for change, accept change, humble myself. And when I did that and I accepted his grace and I said, thank you for the gift that you already gave me that I just was saying no to, and giving me a chance to change this. And when I did, the true heart of transformation came through that. The change of mind came through that. The embodiment came from a new moral, ethical standard that it goes higher than anybody else in this world. So I'm not trying to be Gary Vee. I'm not trying to be somebody else. I'm not trying to be this guy over here. I'm not trying to be my competitor in the world that we do. I don't even follow them. People ask me, well, who's your competitor? I don't know. I don't care. Like, more power to them if they get clients. Like, I don't care. And I think too many people focus on those wrong activities and not enough about where they are, what they're doing, and how they are helping the people right in front of them. And I said, I can no longer be that person. I was that person. And that selfish, arrogant, driven person who needed the approval of the world literally was 50% responsible for destroying a marriage. Okay. Now, it was easy for me to blame her in the outcome of the marriage, because during the process, we discovered a whole lot of things she did wrong. And it was pretty easy. When you go out of the marriage, it's easy to blame the other person. You went out and you cheated on me and with this guy and you did these things. And I never did that. Look at me. I never did that. But I had other problems. I had other hurts. I had other fears. I had other addictions. I had a problem with porn. I had problems with my life. I had problems with my finances. I had problems all over the place. I had no moral compass other than what I dictated and decided was moral. Well, that is a spinning twister of destruction, literally. And I don't blame her now for the way she treated the situation. I don't. I take full responsibility for the outcome of that. I was not a good guy to be around. I was a terrible person. My moral codes were completely out of whack with anybody's expectations or capability of keeping up with it. Right? It was a whirling dervish of trouble. And in the process of breaking that person down multiple times until I was willing to hear and listen and get out of my own stubborn head and my own ideals, then the foundation of his word crept into me, the fundamentals of understanding what Jesus did on the cross for me, and personally accepting and understanding his laws, okay, that didn't just disappear in the effect of Christianity. I call it Christian chaos, which is, well, there was law, Neil, and then Jesus died on the cross and there's no more law. And then they go to what I call the Christian chaos side, which is, all things are all good, but I'm a Christian and I can do anything. I'm like, no, that's my personal belief. And I think that's written in the word, but you go take your own interpretation of that. And the long story short was, I can't operate in that. Christian chaos either. So I have to stay on a hard path of saying no to some things and saying yes to the others and keeping a moral compass above that level and then actually acting and walking in it. I have taught my children, in their own way, in their life, in what they do, and when they go out in public with me, or whether they're with their mom, or whether they're in our homeschool co-op, you should act the compass of your moral direction so that it is written on your actions, not on your mouth. Your mouth, at your age, even mine, will betray you. You will say the wrong things. When it hits the air, it is never coming back. And God forbid, when it does, it's ever recorded, because it is online forever. So you are going to have to own that. That is your new responsibility with the internet technology and the age we live in. Don't say it. You can say it in our house. You can mistake things. You can cuss your sister out or do whatever. But ultimately, that is never going to be purposeful. It is always going to backfire. And you don't want to lose any reputation you've tried to create for yourselves, like me, not getting out here and trying to destroy a simple relationship for $1, is to walk in that word every day, be held accountable, and in some point I will be found guilty of the truth, even if it costs me everything.
Yeah. Thank you for that. Thank you for that.
That's just my 2 cents. Now, it may not be agreeable to everybody, but that's
that 2 cents for me personally is worth an unmeasurable amount of money and value.
I think we're being challenged today about how serious we are in standing in the truth. And there's a gap. It was once explained to me, and I don't know if there's a particular saying or person that can attribute this. And maybe, the internet's great. They'll go down and double fact check me if I'm
they'll tell us.
Double fact check me. Everybody. It just creates engagement in the comments anyway. So thanks for that. The end result is it was basically, there's the truth, there's somebody's truth, and then there's a real truth in between the middle. There's the real truth, my truth, your truth, somewhere there's truth right in the middle. And if we're willing to give each other that compromise, okay, whether you're straight, gay, right, left, up, down, purple, black, pink, whatever, okay, there's the truth, there's your truth, and there's someone else's truth. If we can work as a culture, a community, a business community, a family community, a relationship within our wives and spouses and significant others, to be willing to compromise that truth, that's a part and a start of a moral, ethical code that can come out of that. Which is, I have part of the truth. I know I don't have all of it exactly. You have another side. You saw it a little different. You see another different. That's your truth. What's the actual truth we can agree on somewhere in the middle that says, hey, we're probably not 100% each right, but we can try to get to 100% truth and agree that even though we're not politically aligned or morally aligned or spiritually aligned or whatever aligned, that we can come to that established truth together. And I see that there is a change in that. Do you feel that? Like, I see that change happening. It's been a grassroots. It's been an undercurrent. It's been, you've been called a lot. Dude, I've been called everything you can possibly imagine. I mean, from what, if I were to listen to the world, I'm a white, cisgendered, neo-Nazi, conservative, women oppressing, mansplaining. What else have I been called? All the kinds of names you can possibly think of that don't define me. So why would I get upset with them? They are not who I actually am. So I'm not going to own that. You can call me that, but if I'm not that person, why would it make me upset? See, if it's making you upset, then something in your mind is questioning whether or not that's true. And that's why people get upset. That's why they have these problems. That's why they want to comment and clap back on people. I don't. Why? Because if it is true, I will have to own it. If it is a lie, I will not own it. So I'm not going to get upset about it. And I think there's a lot of course coaches and other people out here and mentoring and doing this kind of business of supporting other people in clientele who are not willing to accept that. Not willing to listen to it. Fix yourself, fix your business.
Oh God, there it is. There it is. Because I was just going to ask, because you mentioned earlier turning over the stone and looking at
looking at the nasty, ugly, squiggly things. It's from good to great.
Squiggly things in between them. And
Jim Collins.
I've been pretty open on this podcast that, like, in navigating that marriage that is coming to an end and having a healthy relationship, but one based on faith for me now, and recommitting my life to Jesus and my values, is my most painful times were where it looked like on the surface I was running away, but I was just refusing to accept what was right in front of me. And it was humility on the other side of it. And I wasn't a good steward of the things that I came in. And there was a lot of dissonance happening in front of me, of me claiming to be a certain way with words, and my mouth got me in trouble, and never ill-intentioned, but very misguided. And it basically was, the stone was turned over in front of me and there was nowhere left to go because everything was taken away. And
Where else to go but up, right?
where else to go but up? And, you know, I joke with people, and I said this at my event, and I was like, I forgot that when I asked God to move mountains, I woke up with a shovel. And that shovel has been prevalent and present for me
Yeah.
wholeheartedly. But it's only as of recently, and I mean the last year, where that shovel turned into excitement versus overwhelm or,
Yeah.
you know, like resistance to it. But in even hearing you speak about this and in doing this, like, I feel so validated, number one, in a good way, of like what I claim in business and what I focus on, because I was called everything. Like when I'm like, relationships beat algorithms 7 years ago, everyone's like,
Right.
get away from me. Who are
Right.
you? Like, why do we
Right.
care about our customers? Um, but even some of the conversations that have happened in boardrooms of billion-dollar companies, and I was like, I'm never going to get spoken to again. And this is on my heart to share. But it was only after looking under that rock, and I feel like looking under that rock brings a whole lot of sobriety of like opportunity that's there.
Yes.
But how do you now, because you have so many people that you interface with and influence, and even guide and lead and embodied values, like how does somebody go about looking under that rock and
Hmm.
really being willing to do that exploration and check the check engine lights in
That's a
doing
great way to say that. Check the check engine lights. You know, here's the thing. You have to be willing to listen to parties that will hold you accountable, and you need parties to hold you accountable. Okay. One of the best things God ever did when he broke me and brought me back up and allowed me and gave me the ability out of free will to choose to follow and change. And then he walked along with me when I did that. If you want to know what that looks like in real life, or go look at the book of Esther, right? Choose free will, and then God comes along you and empowers you to do it and is with you through the process. It doesn't just miraculously happen. It's like, oh, you're changed. And then, magical fairies fly out of your booty. No, that's not how it works, right? You have to go through a process. And like any process of change, it is very close to the process of death. You have to die, okay, to yourself. You have to let the things of life or business sometimes die. You may literally have to deal with the process of death from a loved one or someone else and go through the same steps, okay, of realizing that it occurred, accepting that it occurred. I'm going to get these wrong. I'm forgetting them off the top of my head, but you go through the remorse period, then you go through the obedience period, then you go through the acceptance period, then you go through the anger period. I think I got that in reverse. You go anger and then acceptance and resilience, and then you go through the reconciliation period where you're willing to learn, listen, accept, and change. The same way we may have to do that with a family member that dies that's very close to us, or dealing with the process of someone might die. Or dealing with the death of a relationship, a business, or something you held greatly into your esteem and your heart, and it was a part of who you are. Now you can't be that anymore. Okay. I was a particular person who was married to a lady who had her family as my family, and then that all got destroyed. And I had to die to everything that was going to become everything that I hoped and dreamed it would be, and not lose myself in such significant depression that I would kill myself, because I had a moment in time where that was a questionable outcome. Is it all worth it anymore? Is there a point that this makes no sense? Does anybody going to miss me? Do they even care? And I had that point in my life one time in the past, and I was driving a car at 150 miles an hour down I-70 through Kansas City when I took about 10 seconds to decide whether or not to swing that car into an embankment and end it all. And I had that moment, and I did that. And I did not, as clearly you can see sitting here in front of you, do that, because I would either be paraplegic or dead. At that speed, in a Subaru all-wheel drive, surfed up turbo number 2 in an STI version, right, running that thing over 150 mile an hour down the freeway. And it would have just gone, and that would have been it. And it would have eased all my pain, right? That was the thought process. It would have just eased all my pain. But I had no idea what it would have wrecked. And now I can see, thank to God, what happened when that timeline shifted. And instead of going that direction, my timeline shifted into this one. A completely new shift, a new reality that I live in now that is very different than the one I was on before. So each of those times we look, it may not be as dramatic to you, but you may have questions as to whether or not it all makes sense. Does it all make sense? Does it all make sense? And you want to know, and you may slip into depression. to stay out of those things, you need to be close. You need to listen to people. You need accountability. And when God broke me in that way and then helped me rebuild as I walked that new process with him, that new timeline, I met someone that was in place, in mind, in frame, and in step to become a life partner to actually enable me and hold me accountable in the positive ways, not the negative ways it was done in the past. And with that person now 19 years into our relationship, 17 years into our marriage, I have an accountability partner, someone who holds me, who checks my balance, checks my engine lights. She is the right half of my brain. When I put my partner together with her Reed and they have a conversation, they're like they just talk and they're on the same wavelength and they're I'm like, I don't understand what you guys are doing. Because they're in this wavelength together, right? But it's not my wavelength. But when I listen to them and I don't always like what they have to say, and I don't always want to hear it in the way they say it, and I don't always like the delivery mechanism in which it comes or the reason why they're saying it, but if I'm willing to humble myself in a moment and stop that and be guarded and close my tongue and be slow to anger, in that moment, I will hear and resonate and take opportunity from it. And that has been, relationships that I have needed to check and balance. I have it in business. I have it in my personal life. And I give God the glory for getting those relationships together to allow me to have an opportunity in my own free will to check and balance my life through their relationships. And that is so needed in life. And if you can't find that in a direct relationship, get a mentor. Find someone who will do that and be that person for you until the next person can come into your life that provides that. Because everybody is always here for a short amount of time. Even 20, 30 years is a short amount of time. Okay. Even 40, 50 years is a short amount of time. We all want things in this time frame, and I have now seen things in an infinite timeline. I have now seen them beyond my life, and I now accept that reality. So this is just one step of the, who knows, I'm going to say 89 years. Maybe if God gives me that is going to be on this stepping stone of my life that I walk on now. And I'm going to do the best I can. And with these people, they're going to hold me accountable in that process. And because of that, I know I have to not just be accountable to myself. I have to be accountable to them, and I have to be accountable to God. Now I have a consortium. Now I have a pyramid of, God at the top and these people below and my wife and spouse holding that together in a much stronger shape. Right? Not a round shape, but a pyramid. If you're going to build bridges and never done the Boy Scout thing before, that's the right way to build a bridge. By guys, pro tip, by the way, it's a triangle. Is to hold the structure and the weight of that, 1,000 times greater than any other structure. And that is the point. At the top of that, in the base of that, you find that, and you find that compass. You find those people that will keep you and check you daily, weekly, and monthly. And then you be willing to listen to them. Right? Slow to speak, slow to anger, listen to what they have to say, take it in, resonate. Don't always own everything from every person. That's what I said a minute ago. Only own it and hold accountable to those that are in that close, tight-knit trust circle, and then be willing to humble yourself. If they're willing to do the same, that is extremely powerful.
Yeah. So many things that you said resonate at such a deep level for me. And I just want to echo, because we were talking about this before the show and a little bit at the beginning, like the internet is not your feedback circle.
No, it should definitely not be.
Share your values, and also to speak to the depth of and this is why literally one of my favorite rereads over and over and over is the Screw Tape Letters by C.S. Lewis, because it's an immediate.
Oh, there's a deep topic.
Yeah, an immediate inversion theory of what's happening in my mind, in my brain, and even you speaking to death.
Give that to your 16-year-old and let them read it and find out what happens.
Ooh,
well, she did.
That's a whole different vein.
Very much.
The thing for me, and I see this a lot, and I'm sure you do as well. And I just want to tie some reality to this, even logically, of the death is really the death of how things were done to create the opportunity of how things can be done. And I get met with this a lot with my clients, where they're like, but I don't know, or I'm scared. And I was like, that's actually how you're on the right path. You're stepping.
You should be scared.
You haven't stepped before.
You should feel the fear and do it anyways. That's a Susan
anyway.
Jeffries book. Go get it if you haven't done it. It'll ask the question, what's the worst that can happen? If you just pause on that for a second and ask yourself, what's the worst that can happen? If I'm not dead, okay, then I can still fix this problem. If I'm dead, I'm going to be okay, or I'm going to be okay either way.
Yeah.
If you really put it into simple perspective, we usually over exaggerate every trouble and challenge we have fitted. Now, how can I say that so easily? Okay, number one, I was divorced. Number two, I wrecked a marriage and had a problem. Number three, I crashed a business and am in bankrupt with small children and figured out how to put that whole thing back together. Number four, When I thought my life was on the right track, my wife, after our fourth pregnancy, got very sick. Okay. Didn't know why she was getting sick exactly. In the process of being pregnant, we discovered conditional and medical conditions of conditions of autoimmune issues, precursors for lupus, diabetes, and other things that were really dragging her system down. And we didn't know about that during the process. We discovered it over the years she was pregnant and after her pregnancy. That was very, very challenging for her body. And with that, she had cognitive issues. She had trans-ischemic attacks, or what are called mini strokes, that lost cognitive issues. At one point, she couldn't drive because her vision was so bad. When that finally got reconciled to a degree, she could no longer drive at night because of the vision issues she's had, which changed her life dramatically. This happened when she was like 24, 25, 27. So this was really early in our marriage and early in our walk in her life to have such dramatic medical conditions holding her back from being a mom and driving and doing the things that she needed to do. Well, after the fourth kid, they had a major problem. Well, actually, it happened during the surgery to fix a hysterectomy issue that she had to do a hysterectomy, I should say, after the fourth child. The cauterizing machine failed to cauterize a major artery inside of her chest. What occurred after the next 36 hours was quite incredible. She ended up in 3 major surgeries to save her life. She died in front of me one time and had a code blue, and I realized the monitor that she was on went beep, and with my wife sitting in there, and flipped the lid, and everybody came racing in. She was in such extreme pain right before that occurred, they couldn't figure out what was happening. The doctor had given her too much morphine. So in the process of not only having 8 liters of blood in her chest cavity, they overdosed her with morphine, and she died on the table. And thankfully, I was there. God put me in that position to call them and get them in, or she would have died. They brought her back during that period. I thought she had died, and they brought her back alive. Then we had an emergency surgery at 4 a.m. in the morning. I signed off some documents I didn't even read at that point at 4 a.m. in the morning in a complete unbelievable phase. And they pulled everybody and everything out of that room, and then it went dead silent. And they took her to the surgery. And I had no idea whether she was going to come back from that surgery or not. In my mind, she had just died. I wasn't even sure she was still alive because they were putting machines on her and they were rushing her back to surgery. And so at this moment, here I am sitting in a hospital that was completely chaotic 5 minutes earlier and is now completely dead silent. Okay. And I'm standing there just literally in the middle of this room, just absolutely in shock, like literal shock, not knowing what to do next. And it all was completely quiet. And all you could hear was like the little bit of beeping machines down the hallway from people's monitors. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And then it just hit me like a ton of bricks. If she doesn't come out of this, I am a young father with 4 kids under the age of 5. And that hit me, right? I dropped to my knees and I was like, God, what in the world? You cannot take this woman from me. Like this cannot be my story. And so, finally found her 12 hours later because of the whole complexity of the system and how fast she got moved into it. And the documentation hadn't caught up with how fast they were moving. I didn't even know where she was. I'm like down in the ER room trying to find out where my wife is. Turns out they were trying to find out where I was. And somehow we couldn't get connected in this huge hospital. So they didn't know where I was, and she didn't know where I was, and I didn't know where she was. And so eventually I just barreled my way through the security doors and ran back to the ER, expecting some security guys to like tackle me, and got back to her bed 5 minutes before they took her back for the 3rd surgery. It didn't work. They'd spent 8 hours trying to fix her and couldn't fix her. They thought they got it done. And then in the ER recovery room, she was bleeding out all over the place. And so I got to see her in another horrible condition while they were rolling her back into the 3rd surgery. So there I was again, kicked back out of the ER into this room with all of these people who were waiting in the ER, all this noise again, and I didn't know what was going to happen. And that was the most chaotic thing you could possibly imagine. I'll fast forward and let you know she lived through it all, and it all, has come out okay. That's the short story. The longer story was, I didn't know that she was going to recover or come out of that 3rd surgery again. They spent another 12 hours. They got a secondary consult. They finally figured out where the blood, vein had not cauterized correctly, and were able to get that figured out. But the trauma on her body, the fact that they had overdosed her with morphine, the fact that they had cut her open 3 times and did all this surgery made for a terrible recovery, right? It made for what should have been a, 1 day, 3-day outpatient 6-week recovery turned into a 12-month fight for her life, in a recovery situation where she I became mom, dad, provider, and everyone for her and 4 young kids for the next year. And that was where God put me in that storm. He set me in that place right after we had gone bankrupt. Okay. Sitting there with my wife, now having to recover, thankfully not dead, because that was horrific. In 36 hours, I had a lot of time to think about what I was going to be now that I wasn't sure I was going to have a wife anymore. Right. That's crazy. No stress there. Right. And sitting through that thing, realizing what the heck is going to happen next, knowing that this was a test. That's why they call it a testimony. And the end part of my test was not done yet. And some of you are afraid to walk through your tests. So you do everything to avoid them. If at all possible, you try to run away from them instead of facing them head on. I had no choice. In this case, it hit me like a ton of bricks. My test was on. And how I was going to respond, act, feel, deal with it as a husband, deal with it as a father, deal with it as a businessman. It was all on test, full test. And it went through the next 12 months. I couldn't find a job to save my life. Our business wasn't strong enough at that point, and I was recovering and finishing the parts of the bankruptcy and dealing with that. So we didn't even have income coming in. But you know what? I needed, in the next month, I needed $1,980.53 if math serves me correctly and memory serves me correctly. And I didn't know where the heck it was coming from. And to this day, I still can't exactly tell you how that money came to be in the next month to provide for our bills, but it was there. Down to the penny. Right? Down to the penny. So in that storm, when I sat back and humbled myself and said, God, I can't do this all. I don't know how to do this all. I don't know how to be a father of a 3-month-old baby with a mom who can't take care of him. I don't know how to be a business guy who's gone bankrupt and is trying to figure out what he is, who he is, and where he's going. I don't know how to be this person. I don't even know what this is. Like, talk about a test, right? The end result is, it was a fire defining moment. Gold is refined by fire. And some people are still avoiding the fire. They're afraid of it. So they run from it and they just make it worse. They make it worse. I can see all the different ways now that if I'd look back, these are all the things I could have done out of desperation to try to make that better. We could have gone robbed a bank or something. There's a whole lot of, dude, everything went from my mind, right? What do I got to lose now, right? What have I got to lose? She recovered. Took about 12 to 14 months or more for her to finally get back to a place where she was physically capable, mentally. We were on a path of reconciliation with her health and wellness and dealing with things, and now recovering past that and the realization that she had these medical conditions, genetic and precursors that were handed that we had to start dealing with to how to figure out how to overcome those challenges holistically and medically for her. And that was a whole process that started out of that way. And in the last 15 years, that's given wake to the fact that we've moved to the country. We've cleaned our water up. And in case you weren't paying attention on Telegram recently, you should go check out what Kennedy had just put in there about the IQ points in children. And you'll know why I moved my family into a well 10 years ago. Okay. And why we cleaned our holistic diet up and why we have a 50 by 100 square foot garden, heritage seed built, organic, made by us. We eat all the food out of it. Why we get grass-fed, grass-finished beef from cows in the country. Why I moved my life out to 10 years ago out in the middle of nowhere was to provide all the holistic and eating and necessary things. And if you're not paying any attention to this, I would highly encourage you. Health is wellness. Go to Twitter, follow RFK Jr., watch all the things he's talking about. If you think it was crazy and you don't believe it was true, it absolutely is. Been talking about this for like 17 years. It is absolutely true. And my family is a prodigal explanation, if you will, of what had happened and how we have dealt with it, from my wife to my children to the cleaning and the supply, and now teaching others in our homeschool community and helping them deal with their children and just pouring into the lives of families who have had trouble with their kids and wives and significant others with these issues over the last 15 years. It has become a daily, weekly, monthly blessing for us to have that purpose from all of those experiences have now turned positive and become part of that testimonial that we all walk as a family now.
Yeah, I'm going to start landing this. I just feel called to say thank you for just even sharing all of this.
Yeah.
Very timely and touching for me in this moment. And also for anybody listening, right? This isn't one of those ones I have like a pretty little bow to put on. The message is there, and each individual person's ability to navigate that and to hear that. Just even the parallels, man. I just gratitude from a man to a man of faith, the example that you are, and even the timely reminders of things that I was feeling this morning and in prayer about. Just thank you for sharing like
My pleasure.
absolutely everything that you shared.
My pleasure.
Um,
It's not mine to share. It was given to me. And I still am interested to see where it goes from here. I don't think the struggles are done. I know they can't be because it's life. And I know a different struggles will come at a different time. I just know that we have been on a path of being prepared to deal with them
yeah,
and realize that they're all temporary.
it reminds me like this year there was one, and not quote for quote, but it was like Isaiah 43:18-19, as I continue to walk through a hostile, inhospitable wilderness, constantly walking away from
Yeah,
what was to what is, I'll be refreshed with living streams of water. And like I read that like hundreds of times a day,
it's beautiful.
and it carried me. And there's so much depth at so many levels to so many things that you shared, from the
Yeah,
implementable to the logical to the spiritual to the emotional to even an application to business, to integrity, to values, like the unpacking of know, liking, trusting in the embodiment of it, and being the example. And I just genuinely, from the bottom of my heart, like, just thank you. And for
my
everybody
pleasure.
listening, whether this lands for you or not, this was put on my radar today for me personally. Um, and Neil, I would just love it if you wouldn't mind sharing like the best place that people can connect. I know you have your Instagram, but also your
Of
podcast is
course.
incredible, and I've been on it. And so if you could
Yeah,
give everybody the ecosystem, because I'm gonna
yeah.
throw a pretty aggressive invitation, that if anything tickled in today's show, which by the way, that thing where like our brain recognizes that it's true. I call that the tickle test.
Mm,
If it tickles, it's ours. Pick up the phone. And if it doesn't tickle, then
don't
it's not
answer.
yours and move on.
Don't answer the phone. Could be a prank
And
call.
yeah, so if you wouldn't mind sharing just for
Sure.
everybody, I'd rather hear it from you.
Well, in simple terms, I'm all over the internet. I do have a small last name. It is Twa. And if you didn't see my face on this, I'm not a small Asian dude, although I've been mistaken for that in the past. It is French, actually, Le Trois. It actually came from Normandy, France, and my father's a descendant of Vikings who all settled in Normandy, France a long time ago, which is why I have 6 foot, almost 6'5", blonde hair, blue eyed guy. That's how it all came about. But if you go out and just search for Twa, go to, you can't miss me. You get the airline and me. You'll find my Instagram at Neil Twa, my X, and all the normal things. VoltageDM.com, VoltageDigitalMarketing.com is where my business lies. And follow my Facebook and Twitter for the way I really think and what I think about business and life until they kick me off. And the other ones are mostly about business, if that's where you find lead. And then if you go on Amazon, you can search for my book, Almost Automated Income with FBA, where I talk about the strategy of building a business with the end in mind, the real business building strategy of growth and scale on a physical private label omni-channel business starting on Amazon FBA and moving back to direct to consumer. If that tickles your ears too, that might be something we could chat about. If you just want to chat about life and family and faith, I'm down for that too.
Yeah. I'm gonna take you up on that again. Selfishly, well, it's publicly recorded, so you just have to say yes.
Okay.
I call that positive peer pressure. No,
Positive peer pressure. I like that.
and for everybody
Triple
listening,
P.
I'll make sure that we link everything in the show notes as well to make it really, really easy. And just, man, thank you again.
Well,
I,
thank
I knew
you.
this the moment we connected, and even had the truck chat, and now more so validated on how alike and similar value and driven, and it feels like I have a very quality example of like who I strive to be every day. And I just genuinely, from like a man to man, like just feel humbled by your example. And I just appreciate the way that you operate and the
I'm
way that
very
you live.
grateful. I receive that in humility and thank you for the time and the platform to share the message of good and hope and love. I know some people feel like things are negative and sometimes they feel like they're far away and sometimes it feels scarce and sometimes it's limiting, but we have to try to remember as much as possible there is abundance everywhere. There really is. We have a lot of good things to be grateful for. We just have to try to refocus and reframe. And if we can do that, the days really aren't that bad. Even in the struggle, they're good. Even in the bad days that I had to struggle through, there were friends and family and to lift me up. There was good and there was positive and there was, it sounded all negative, but there is good and positive. That is part of that testimony. Don't forget that, guys. Your story is your testimony. You got to live it, love it, own it, earn it, and get out there and share it with somebody because it's not about us.
Mm-hmm. And I couldn't wrap the show in a better way. And so I'm just going to put a bow on that and say everything that he said for the last hour. And this will be a re-listen for me as well. And so
Wonderful.
for everybody listening, my invitation is that whatever tickled today, just pick up the phone and take action on it. Like, let today be the permission slip or the time to not move the starting line, but to take that first step and let the next steps reveal themselves, because this one is loaded with knowledge and value. And so most importantly though, remember that relationships will always beat algorithms, and even more so the one with yourself, your values, your purpose, the reason you do the things that you do, and be proud of them and own them and be unapologetic about them when they're done for the right reasons, and get loud about it, get proud about it, and keep turning it up because it makes a difference. And so we'll either see you in the next episode or you'll hear me in your earballs, but either way, we're out.